Hey. Okay. I don't do many lives anymore. I just don't have time anymore. I'm going to try and get more into it. My daughter and I are trying to figure a whole bunch of stuff out. We've just gotten busy. Okay. So I'm just going to wait. I usually wait till I get about 100 people joining in. I'm only going to do, yes, you can. Sorry, this is Natalie. Can you start your behavioral structure with a 9 and 11-year-old? Absolutely. Yeah. I specialize in teenagers, so it's never too late. Okay. Okay, I've got enough people. Oh, geez, it's late. I can't believe it. Oh, I've been on the go all day. Okay, so welcome to my live. My name's Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. I'm a mom. I'm also a grandmother. My hat proves that. Anyway, if you want to check out my website, it's BratBusters.com. You can see my free behavior board, which has the behavior board on it for three and above. It also has a toddler section. It's a whole course, but it's just a mini free course. Anyway, so you can check into that. You can also look into my boot camp courses. Coaching. I've got a huge wait list for coaching. We're trying to work on that, trying to figure out how to manage that right now. Maybe we'll restructure coaching. I don't know what we're going to do with that. But anyway, there is a wait list. And then, or a podcast. My daughter and I do the podcast. We just filmed one the other day. We work together. She does all my marketing, all my planning, all my social media, and she basically tells me what to do. So and anyway, we just did I'm just going to tell this funny story. We just filmed a podcast the other day. We do 2 a week. And we told this story. And I just want to defend myself. We were by a softball game and someone yelled up, heads. Well, like heads up. In other words, there was a pop fly and it was coming towards us. So my daughter looked up. Now, she's 30 years old. It's not like she's 2. So she's 30 years old. She looked up. Now, because she looked up and I didn't, I thought she knew where the ball was. So what I did was I crouched behind her and I pulled her towards me, sort of arching her back to protect myself, like a shield, really. But I thought she knew where the ball was. So yeah, there was a whole bunch of witnesses to that. I did not come out smelling like a rose. So just wanted to tell you, if you're listening to the podcast, that's coming out. In my defense, I have none. But I did think she saw where the ball was, so I thought she could protect us both. Anyway, yeah, no one's perfect. Boy, I'm not going to live that one down for a very long time. Okay, so let's get going with your questions. I'll do my best to answer them, and we'll go from there. Okay, this is Alexandria. Any tips for a 4-year-old that has behavioral issues at school, doesn't listen, but doesn't have this issue at home? There's a couple of reasons for that usually. Either they're used to being the center of attention and getting whatever they want at home, whereas at school they have to share stuff, there's more routine, they don't get everything they want. That's usually one of the reasons. The other one is maybe there's something going on at school that upsets them, but I don't know what that is. That's not usually as common as the first reason. So you might want to think about that. But ask the teacher, is something going on there? If not, make sure you're a leader at home and you're not just giving into everything and just being their servant, basically. So you want to get that behavior board going. It's completely free. It's on my website, and it teaches you how to be a leader. When you're a leader, they tend to respect not just you, but other people too, because your leadership increases their self-esteem. When you've got high self-esteem, you'd be embarrassed to be rude to anybody. Do you know what I mean? Okay. What do you do when your child is getting spoiled? Stop allowing them to be spoiled. You're not doing them any favors. Almost 3-year-old spitting at us when he's angry or when we tell him no. Yeah, I would put down a couple of ways of dealing with that. Yeah, put down no spitting on the behavior board, plus an additional consequence. On the behavior board, you just put down no spitting is his rule, and then check out the behavior board, then you have a consequence if he does spit. But an added consequence is always have a wet rag handy when you know he's going to be mad, like a face washer, and wipe his face every time he spits. They hate having that done. So, oh, you spit. Okay, there'll be a consequence. We're going to go to the board, but I want to wipe your mouth. So make a big bit of a show of it. And make sure it's not a warm, wet face cloth. You want it to be kind of cold and uncomfortable, and then wipe up the floor wherever you spit. So yeah, that's just an added. Don't never look angry. Just say, oh, we just got to get you cleaned up here. You know, they hate having that done. Okay. Okay. Any suggestions for 3 years old, still going potty and diaper, says that I'm scared. You might want to check out my boot camp courses. They both have the potty training course, mini course in them. Saying they're scared. Is it just the pooping that scares them? I don't know. They're often better with a little potty than they are the big toilet. The big toilet can be scary because they might have had splashback, right? So a little potty, little porta potty doesn't have that. And also put some toilet paper in the potty so that they can feel it touching their bum, because often they're used to going to the bathroom. It's all smashed up in there. So yeah, other than that, I don't quite know. Yeah. And you never it's not bad behavior. Not being potty trained is not bad behavior. I've worked with a lot of kids on this, like families on this, and there was only one that weaponized weaponized his poop with his parents. It was, yeah, I won't go into it, but it's quite rare that I treat it like bad behavior. That one I did treat like bad behavior, but we had to be very careful how we did it, because I never want to treat bodily functions in the same way I treat bad behavior. But this one instance that I can remember, it was very much, he was using it as a weapon. Kids are funny. Well, I can laugh because I didn't live with it and I wasn't going through it, but parents weren't laughing. So we did it. Once we fixed it, they did end up laughing, but it took a while. Okay. Any tips on a 3-year-old that's trying to challenge us all the time and is very hard-headed? Also takes him about 2 hours to just say sorry. Who cares if he says sorry? That's such empty words. Don't worry about that. They don't really have remorse. That's what you're after. You're after remorse. What good is that? Where's the lesson? Can you imagine if you didn't pay taxes, but you just had to say sorry? Yeah, consequences are what it's all about. So have a consequence. So he's challenging you. I would suggest that you check out the boot camp course if you're really struggling. If you just want to start for free, try the behavior board. It's all on BratBusters.com, and it teaches you how to start using rules and consequences and how to do it effectively. By the way, if you ever look angry, frustrated, or disappointed in your children, you're doing it wrong. You want to look very calm, like a business transaction. Whenever you're disciplining your children, it's a business transaction. Zero emotions. Play with them. That's where all the emotion should be. I've never heard this question before. I'm going to read it out, but I don't have an answer. My 5-year-old rarely remembers what he did at school or what he ate. How can I improve his memory? I just think he's bored. He just doesn't want to talk about it. I don't think that's a memory thing. I'm guessing it's not a memory thing, because when kids get in the car and you say, "What did you do today?" "Nothing." They always say that. But then over time, like through dinner, they might start talking about stuff. But they just came out of that. They want to forget about it. They want to move on. But yeah, usually I don't think it's a memory thing so much as just doesn't want to talk about it. Any additional tips for 12-year-old ADHD boys who are more defiant? Well, those are all the kids I worked with, and it has nothing to do with them. It's all you and your leadership skills. Work on yourself, work on your leadership skills. You lead, they will follow. It's just a natural instinct. Less so as they become teenagers, but that's another thing. You can still be a leader with the teenager, but you want to hand over a lot of the leadership stuff to them too. You want to sort of share it. You're there for the big stuff, and you're there to bounce ideas off of. But yeah, those are all the kids I worked with. All this stuff works with ADHD. I used to call them alphabet kids, the ADHD, WXYZ. They all had acronyms after their names. That's where I learned all this. Long before I had my own kids. What if they're potty trained but goes in his pants during recess because he has FOMO, just turned 4, fear of missing out? Yeah, he'll grow out of that. Yeah. But if he's at school, so he said it during recess, he's doing that at school. Not much you can do. Just tell the teacher, by the way, he usually goes during recess. So if you could maybe try and encourage him if they have time. By the way, they got a lot of kids. So I might suggest that. This is probably TMI, but I'm really bad for if I'm sitting chatting with people and having fun, I'm just about busting by the time I go to the bathroom. And if I'm in a restaurant or something, you better be, I always pray there isn't a lineup. I've got a lot of little kid in me. I hate to miss out. So I think, well, if I go to the bathroom, what am I going to miss out on? So yeah, I can understand it. Although I actually don't go in my pants. You understand that, but got a couple close calls. My 3-year-old keeps asking us, well, you've sort of already answered it. My 3-year-old keeps asking us, "Are you happy, Mom?" Whenever we tell him to do something, it has become a habit. Is this normal? Yeah, he gets a reaction. So I would just ignore it. So you tell them to do something. Are you happy, Mom? Say, so are you going to get it done or whatever? Like just ignore that. He's trying to pull you into some other conversation. It's just a learned behavior. He's learned that can divert your attention for at least a minute. Currently on day 2 of potty training, my 2-year-old. Wish me luck. Oh gosh, good luck. I just got an email from someone. They had twins and they did it in 3 days, and they said it worked. So, but yeah, just keep at it. It's not foolproof. Some kids are going to be harder than others, but generally, it's a really good system. I've been doing it now for 30 plus years, and seems to help a lot of families. Nothing's guaranteed with this. Nothing's guaranteed. We're all dealing with human beings here. So I'm just scrolling ahead because I want to make sure you're still here when I answer your questions. Okay, how long after an illness, ear infection, do you stop giving in to toddlers' every want and determine it's a tantrum? I don't know. You're going to have to decide, are they still in pain? If they're rubbing their ear or something. And even then, you might start backing off of that giving into everything and start using diversion, but I don't know how old they are. So yeah, you didn't put, and a lot of people call 3-year-olds toddlers. I don't. To me, a toddler is under the age of 3. To me, a toddler is 16 to 35 months. A child is 3 to 12. A tween is 9 to 12, and then teenager 13 plus. Someone said, haha, great point. Thanks, Lisa. I don't know what point I made. I forgot. It's funny. Once I've said something, I usually forget it right away. Isn't that weird? Okay. How to deal with toddler jealousy from a new baby. Not much you can do about that. I often get asked this. How do we help a toddler adjust to having a new baby in the house? How can you? Could someone have prepared you for having your first child? It's kind of like that. You got to go through it. They'll eventually learn. They'll adjust. They're little. They're pliable. They'll eventually learn. But yeah, not much you can do. Just the standard stuff. Get them a little doll that they can help. They can change their diaper while you're changing the baby. I haven't found that works all that well, but a lot of people have tried that. It just takes time. Just takes time. Okay, my 21-month-old bangs his head when upset and shrieks as hard as he can. I tried ignoring, helmet or holding slightly, but he doesn't calm down. How long should I hold his arms from hurting himself? You hold them for maybe 20 to 30 seconds or even 1 minute, then you let go, but watch him like a hawk. As soon as he goes to hurt himself, grab him again. So it's like the spurts. You grab him and you say no, and then you hold him, let go, see if he tries again, then hold him again. I don't know how long it's going to take. I have no idea. How to teach a toddler 18 months about danger, hot ovens, cars, etc. You can't. They can't reason things through. They might touch a hot oven 10 times, but on the 11th, they might not touch it. But they might even go back again on the 13th or 14th time. Like they don't really understand danger yet. They're more about impulses rather than thought processes. So they're just walking along and they just touch stuff without thinking. It's the lack of reasoning or impulse control. That's the problem at that age. It was funny. I remember my daughter, she was really little. And when I used to say no, when she'd go to touch something, she used to get these lobster claws because she's very tactile. She liked to touch stuff, not just look at it. So if she couldn't touch something, she'd start going like this. And that's when I knew there was something nearby that she wanted to touch, but knew she couldn't. Lobster claws. I daycare my granddaughter 1 day a week. She's 16 months old, and it's just interesting watching it because now I'm right in it, right? When I've got her, so I know what you're talking about, like right. You know what I mean? I'm going through it again with her. So, but they're all so different too. Like she's not precocious at all, and she'll go to touch something, and I'll just go, "Oh, that's not for you," and then she'll just sort of go like that and not touch it. Like she's not precocious at all. That's more unusual. My kids weren't overly precocious either, but I don't think they were quite that cautious. But yeah, they're all so different, right? You can't, there's not one one piece of advice for all toddlers, because that's why in my toddler boot camp course, it's more reference material. Just look up what you need. They're not all going to do something. They're not all going to do the same things. They're quite different. So yeah, like my daughter never had a tantrum, but my son had them. So, and they're all different. Forgive me if this is in the boot camp course, which I'm slowly moving through. Well, I don't know what you put there. And that's okay, because other people who don't have the boot camp course might benefit them anyway, right? Okay. Do you have any suggestions to help parents get on the same page with parenting? My husband and I parent differently, and we're having a difficult time. Just, okay. You flip a coin and you pick whoever gets the heads or tails, whatever they chose, is their way, and that's it for 3 weeks. Give it a go for 3 weeks. Or you can even say, look, if you're following me, say, I want to give this a go for 3 weeks. Are you on board? But offer them something. Say, what do you want from me? And if you're not on the same page and you argue, never argue in front of the kids. If you ever undermine or argue in front of the kids, undermine each other or argue in front of the kids, then you should have a consequence. Get your own behavior board going just between the two of you. A lot of my clients do that, my married couples. They have their own behavior board in the master bathroom. So if the rule is no undermining the other parent. And when they do, they have to give the other parent a foot massage or something. It's just supposed to be funny, kind of, but it just reminds them, don't undermine me. I won't get into it, but they get quite creative with these consequences. Yeah. I tell a lot of stories in coaching. I can't tell stuff here because I don't know if kids are watching, but yeah, there's some very interesting consequences if they mess up. I love coaching. It's my favorite thing to do. It's funny, I was having a really rough day the other day, just busy. We're really busy, my daughter and I, these days. And we work 7 days a week. And so I was really, really busy, really stressed out. And I thought, oh my God, and I've got a full day of coaching coming up. And the first client turns up and I'm like, I just find coaching so relaxing because I'm connecting, right? And I'm hopefully helping. I just absolutely love, well, I'm kind of mothering too. And I love mothering. So I'm kind of mothering all my clients. It was just struck me as funny the other day. It was so relaxing going into a session. I work during that session, but I love it. Okay. Okay. My 5-year-old will have meltdowns, but will become extremely aggressive, biting, scratching, urge to breaking things in front of her. It would last about 45 minutes, and then it would be as if nothing happened. Okay, you never punish a tantrum because a tantrum is not bad behavior. But what they do during a tantrum, you can certainly have a consequence for. So I would put down no violent behavior, like no biting, scratching, throwing things, whatever. That can be the rule on the behavior board. The behavior board is completely free on my website, by the way. If you want to go to the next level, you can get the boot camp course. It's just obviously more involved. Anyway, so I would put that down. And then after the tantrum's over, I would say, let's go to the board. Okay, so you threw something, but you don't mention the tantrum. You never mention a tantrum, never discuss it. And you never discuss bad behavior. You just deal with it. Say, okay, you say you threw something, so here's your consequence, okay? And follow through like that. Why do we not address tantrums? A tantrum is in the not even in the attitude department. A tantrum is a loss of emotional control and not getting their own way. That's the low road. They're on that low road. You stay on the high road. As soon as you start talking to them during a tantrum, discussing a tantrum before, during, or after, you're on the low road. You're sort of validating it, whereas I give it no power whatsoever, none. But if they've done something during the tantrum afterwards, then I can address that bad behavior, like throwing stuff, hitting, biting. I can address that, especially with a 5-year-old. By the way, they only usually have tantrums past the age of, or they stop having tantrums past the age of about 3.5 to 4. If they continue to have them, then you're feeding it. You have to be feeding it because they only do what works past the age of 3.5 to 4. They only do what works. They're not like us adults. I'm really stupid. I do the same thing repeatedly, expecting different results. I don't know why, but I do. And but kids aren't like that. If something doesn't work repeatedly, they try something new. They abandon it and they try something new because they're growing, they're forming, and they're finding themselves. That's why. I've already found myself. Don't always like what I found, but yeah, I do often do the same thing repeatedly, expecting different results. I'm 64 years old. I still do it. Why? I don't know. I don't know. It's a comfort zone. Being an idiot, it's a comfort zone, I guess. I don't know. Okay, let me see here. And I'm getting a lot of emails about coaching. There is a very large wait list. Unfortunately, we've just gotten really busy. We are trying to figure it out. Maybe we can serve people in another way. We're not too sure how we're going to do it. If you have any suggestions, that'd be great, like group coaching sessions, or we're trying to figure it out. So there's a big wait list for coaching, which has been shut down for about a month now. But we do have another list going on our website right now, BratBusters.com. And that will be, you'll get notified when coaching is available again. So it might be a couple of months. I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure what we're going to do. We're trying to figure stuff out right now. But, they always say, be careful if you want things to get busy, because, it's a nice problem to have, but also it's frustrating because I love to serve people. And if there's people sitting there waiting and sending me emails, I can't fast track you. I just can't, because I'm just full up right now. Okay, I've only got so many hours in the day. Have you worked with kids on this autism spectrum? Oh gosh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. But I never discuss that anywhere but in coaching, because I have to assess the situation, what has worked in the past, what hasn't, are they mainstream? If not, et cetera. So that would just be coaching. I don't generalize anything with autism. Okay, how do you handle a 6-year-old being so emotional during school work? So really emotional during school work. You mean homework? Is that what you mean, Rosie? This is on YouTube. Emotional. Just doesn't want to do it. Stressed out they can't do it. I would maybe sit there with them and support them through it if they're doing homework. Say, come on, you can do this. It's no big deal. It doesn't have to be perfect. I never expect perfection from kids either, because that's kind of setting them up to fail. I say, come on, it's not a big deal. Let's just, that was great. Okay, let's talk like that. Kids who have emotional instability over things, or stress, or it sounded really emotional instability, but if they get upset over things, they calm down when they've got a leader. Like if you were going into battle in a war and you had a leader who was like, oh, got it, you just got to do it, and talk like that, wouldn't you feel unsure? Whereas if you went with someone who said, come on, we got this. I know where we're going to go, what we're going to, it's a lot of it is just your attitude, how you sell it. I did your BratBusters boot camp and it worked well. Now almost 4-year-old not listening, especially with teachers. If it went well, usually when you set yourself up as a leader at home, and this is a 4-year-old, they listen to you, right? And you listen to them. It's mutual respect. But once your leadership is cemented, they would be too embarrassed to treat anybody else poorly. So you really want to assess your leadership skills. Like, are you really there yet? Or is it just new and fresh? It might take a while for that to bleed into every other relationship. So yeah, in other words, once their self-esteem has increased, they tend to treat everyone with respect. So might just take a little bit longer. Might be one of those things. Also, you could actually come up with a whole new behavior board and just say, follow what teacher says, or listen to the teacher, whatever. And then say the teacher will be reporting every single day. And then you could have a consequence if they didn't listen at school. You could try that too. But basically, it might just be a bit of a wait to see if that bleeds into other relationships. Because when they respect you, they tend to respect everybody. Okay. I've tried getting your free behavior board off your website, but haven't received anything after confirming my email. I tried a few times, but nothing. My daughter, not me. She does all that stuff. She's gone through it step by step by step by step. Follow. If you've missed a step, that's probably it, because we've looked at it. It's foolproof if you go through every single step. We've checked into that. We've been doing that for a couple of years now, making sure it's right. So you might have just missed a step. And there are a few steps. Did you know it's illegal to get an email and just start sending out newsletters and stuff to people? You're not allowed to do that. You need to ask for permission. You need to get confirmation and permission. That's why there's steps involved. It's just the way it is. Lots of people get an email and then send stuff out. They're not allowed to do that. So, okay. Now, this is from doula_this on YouTube. I don't want to micromanage my 14, almost so teenager. School mornings, he doesn't get up on time and is always late, at least half an hour on any given day. He stays up late gaming, and it's 1 a.m. I find him, I've worked up his gaming. Okay, sorry, but that's coaching. You know what? You don't have a lot of leverage unless you can turn off the Wi-Fi. You must have to be able to turn off the Wi-Fi or take his phone away. But if you just start doing that, sorry, my nails just fell apart here. So yeah, you've got to have leverage. So just say, I'm going to be turning off the Wi-Fi at 10 o'clock. If you're not ready for school, it'll be turned off at 9. You could try that and then say to him, does that sound fair? Because you can't be late for school, right? So ask him, say, does that sound fair and reasonable? See what he says. I don't know. Turn it off and take the laptop off him. Yeah, but be careful with that. Get his compliance with this. You might not get it, but try. Say, does that sound fair and reasonable? How do we get you to school on time? Well, just get off my back. By the way, do you know the most common age for people to hire me if they have a teenage boy is just turned 15. It's amazing. It's not almost always, but I would say 80 to 85%. I just made that up, but it sounds about right. So if parents have a teenage boy and they want to hire me for coaching, that teenage boy is almost always just turned 15. It's amazing. Girls 12 to 16. I love teenagers. It's my favorite age. I remember I was telling a client about this the other day, just funny stories. My son was 14, he just turned 15, I think. And that's when the hormones kick in. Around that time, he shot up his height, hormones, his voice lowered, everything. I remember this one morning, every single morning when he was 14, I used to come downstairs and he'd usually be in the kitchen. So I'd come downstairs and I'd go, morning, sweetie. And he'd go, morning, mom, the voice going up and down. And I'll never forget it. One morning he was 15 and I went downstairs and I go, morning, sweetie. And he turned around, his face looked different, his expression, everything. And he went, morning, mom. Oh, he was turning into a man. It was like overnight. It was the weirdest thing. You could just see it. The hormones were starting, like big time. That, wow, my little boy turning into a man. And another one that he said to me, he was probably about 20 or something. And he was just sitting there, just not doing anything. And I said, what are you thinking? And he said, nothing. And I said, no, really, what are you thinking? And he says, Mom, let me tell you something about men. He says, when a man says to you, he's thinking nothing, he's thinking nothing. So I didn't really understand men until I raised one. I'm still not sure about them. Sorry, these comments are coming in kind of weird. Every so often things glitch. So it's flipping around a little bit. Okay. What consequences are shoot, it's glitching. I can't get it. It's glitching. Wow. It's flipping around. I don't know what's going on here. Frustrating. Okay. I can't even read the questions because it's glitching. So I'll try. No. Okay. What to do no, I can't do it. It's, I can't explain it, but on my Instagram, it's flipping around. So what I might do is I might just hop over to TikTok now. And so I'll leave you here. My name's Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. If you go on my website, BratBusters.com, you can see my free behavior board, my courses, my coaching, and you can look into our podcast. We do 2 a week. My daughter and I work together and we do the podcast together. A lot of funny stories on there too. A whole bunch of stuff comes out. So anyway, thanks so much for joining me. I'm on YouTube the whole time whenever I'm doing a live, and I'm going to hop over to TikTok now. Happy parenting. Well, that was frustrating. Never had that before. It was just glitching. I couldn't read what questions. Come on, TikTok, let me go here. Come on. Switch the camera. Live. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, doula. Teenage stuff is tricky, especially this. I've got I can't talk about that. I didn't ask permission. If I talk about a client, I've asked permission, or it's just a general kind of thing. But yeah, you're not alone. Put it that way. You're not alone. It's tricky, but we got to find some kind of leverage. And also, I work very heavily on the connection with teenagers. It's not about the discipline with teenagers. I mean, it isn't with kids either, but especially teenagers. You have to work on your connection with them. How on earth do you connect with a 15-year-old boy who doesn't want anything to do with you? Is that what you're thinking? Yeah, there's lots of ways around that. So you can show an interest in their music, and it is very transparent. They know what you're doing, but don't look too pathetic about it. Oh, I really want to get close to you. Can I listen to your music? Don't do anything like that. Just kind of say, oh, well, what bands do you like? I just want to, trying to understand what you like about these bands, and then show an interest in it. So yeah, you're going to look a little bit pathetic, but that's part of parenting, especially with teenagers. Okay, so welcome to my live. I'm on TikTok now. Instagram was glitching, so I had to leave there. I'm on YouTube the whole time. Check out my website. It's BratBusters.com. I'm a parenting coach. And you can see my free behavior board, my courses, coaching, and you can look into our podcast. My daughter and I do 2 a week because we work together. She does all my marketing, all my social media, and all my planning. Someone said to her the other day, oh, I hear you work for your mom. And they said, no, you work with your mom. Because I always say, believe me, she does not work for me. If anything, it's the other way around. She's very organized, very good at planning. So she knows where we're going. I don't have a clue. It's funny. I said to her on a podcast a few months ago, I think it was, and I said, I couldn't imagine running this business without you because she knows exactly what we're doing with marketing and all that. And she goes, well, Mom, we kind of need you too, because I am the face of the business. It's my information, but it just struck me as funny because I always think that, she's and she is very important, believe me. But it was funny. She goes, yeah, so are you, Mom. I don't think of it that way. I'm just so grateful that she's working with me because she left her corporate job to come and do this. So I'm very, very, very grateful. She loves it. And she's her own boss now, too. Okay. How often would you allow after-school play dates for a 6-year-old? I'd have one every day if they lived next door and it was only for half an hour. But I probably wouldn't have like 3-hour play dates every day. So yeah, maybe 1 or 2 a week. I don't know. That's up to you. That's like saying how much screen time should they have? That's sort of a judgment call. Whatever works within your family and whatever you feel is reasonable. Okay, this one's kind of a tricky one. They said, how do I get my 2-year-old to stop climbing on counters? Nothing I do works. I don't know. What I would do maybe is put a bell on my kid and then I'd know where they are. But everything's temporary with toddlers, okay? So I know it's frustrating right now, but I always say child-proof your home. But if you can't keep them off the counter, what are they using to climb up there with? If they're using a chair or something, I would probably put bells on the chair so that you know they're doing it. I'll tell you kind of a funny story. It's not that funny, but it was kind of creepy, actually. This mom had a client of mine was telling me this story. She goes, she had an 18-month-old little girl, and she said, I was looking everywhere. She could not find her. And she was just about to call the police, and then she heard giggling. And she looked up, and her kid was on top of the fridge. What they'd done is the little girl had used her toes she just pulled the drawers out a little bit, because they were childproof, but she could get her toe on top of the little, use it as steps. She got on the counter, then on the bread maker, then on the fridge. And yeah, how frightening. What if she'd fallen off? That would have been quite the fall. Anyway, yeah, you got to climb her, so it's just tricky. You just have to watch them like a hawk. Do your parent classes help with autistic behaviors? They could. If they're mainstreamed and it's a mild autism, then yes, it could. A lot of what I teach is about connecting with your kids. But autism usually I say is more reserved for coaching one-on-one with me. So you might want to check that out on my website. There is a big wait list right now, but maybe in the next 2 or 3 months, I might be able to get to you. So. My kid has done that, but he was hiding inside the cooler, scared me to death. Yeah, that's so dangerous. Oh, I don't want to go into this. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I've heard all sorts of stuff where kids end up in a deep freeze and, horrible stuff. Yeah, you got to watch them like a hawk. Childproof. So some people say, I don't want a childproof. I want them to learn to not touch stuff. I did not felt it was necessary for my kids to learn how to brush their teeth with a toilet brush. Do you know how many people have told me that that's happened with their kids? Oh, well, I just want them to learn. I don't want that. I don't want them to learn not to brush their teeth with a toilet brush by doing it. Yeah, I don't like that. I childproof so I can just relax in the house. And I was good at it too. Like there was nothing below the waist that my kids couldn't touch. I just chose to live that way. And because it just made my life so easy. But if they're my kids weren't climbers. Climbers are harder. I would say, there's 4 things that they're born to do or they're never going to do. One is climbing. One is running. They don't listen to you when you're out and they run. The other one is hitting and being violent. And the other one is tantrums. I think climbing's the hardest one. You can put a leash on them when they're runners, but climbing they can do anywhere in the house all the time. That's quite dangerous. I knew someone, I don't remember if it was a client actually. I don't remember if it was, but it was a kid who they had like high pitched ceilings and there was sort of a skinny hallway that went sort of with the high pitched ceiling. And the kid was using like this, went up 18 feet high. Like he was about 4 or 5 years old and he had climbed up using the sides of the walls 18 feet up in the ceiling. Like, oh, geez, that's a climber. What can you do to childproof that, eh? Oh, by the way, I'm constantly just moving him, telling him it's not safe. He doesn't care that it's not safe. You're using words. You don't do that with a 2-year-old. You say no, and then you take a toy away from him. So make sure that you say no and then put his favorite toy away where he can see it but can't touch it. So there has to be a consequence. There has to be something negative that he associates with climbing. Oh, and everything's just a stage. Everything's temporary. Teen parenting connection tips. Okay, I'll tell you what I did with my son. He turned 15. All of a sudden, he even said to me, I said, what's going on? We don't talk. This is me, all whining. We don't talk like we used. We used to be like best buddies and chatting all the time. And he goes, Mom, and he said this to me, Mom, I'm becoming a man. I'm not your girlfriend anymore. And I was like, oh, boo-hoo. Anyway, so I thought, how am I going to connect with this guy? He liked video games. I don't. He's 35. He still loves video games. He loves them. So I didn't like that. And I'm not into heavy metal music, which he was. We just didn't have much in common anymore. And he wasn't chatting as much as he used to because he was turning into a man. They just don't usually use, chat as much. So anyway, I thought, what am I going to do? I really want to stay best buddies with this guy. So what I did was I went down the rec room where he was playing video games and I would just sit with a magazine, but I wouldn't try and talk to him. I didn't want to disturb him. So I'm just sitting with a magazine. As time went on, he starts discussing the game. Then he hands me a controller. Next thing you know, we're playing. Then he's playing his heavy metal music for me. I'm just trying to enter his world, but wait till I'm invited. I didn't try and can I play with you? It wasn't all pathetic. So I was thinking, I hope we can play with me, So such a loser. That's what you become. When you got teenagers, you become that loser. Can you play with me? So I had no dignity, no pride, but I didn't want to push myself on him. No pressure, right? But yeah, he would invite me into his world. So that's how we connected through music. To this day, I still like, I don't even know if I should say this. No, it's too rude. It's a band. It's NWA's Greatest Hits. It's one of my favorite albums, but only that one. But my son introduced me to that whole genre of music, and I don't even think he listens to that stuff anymore, but I still do. So at the gym, just at the gym. And, but yeah, open your mind to what they're doing. You might end up kind of liking it. Don't push yourself on them. Don't say things like this. Why aren't we friends anymore? Like I did, it's such a loser. And then they just go like, ew, get away from me. It's kind of pathetic. But yeah, I did all that. Haven't watched you in a while. I'm not on here very often. We don't have time anymore. Business has just been crazy. So yeah, I love doing lives, but I think part of it is the podcast has taken over because we do 2 podcasts a week and filming takes a lot because we probably trash about a third or maybe even almost a half of maybe about a third of what we do. We just go, yeah, we didn't like that one because we try and put out our best work. So we film a lot, but we only post what we really like. So if you don't like one of our podcasts, imagine the ones we tossed. Because we'll both finish a podcast and we'll go, I just didn't like that one. The podcast is called BratBusters Parenting Podcast. It's on all the platforms, and it's every Tuesday and Thursday morning that we post that. Okay, I'm sure you've talked about it, but in today's world, it's almost impossible to escape a screen. Yeah, it's kind of reality. That's where we get our information from. That's where we get our news from. So yeah, it is kind of impossible, but it doesn't mean that you have to be on there 12 hours a day. I shouldn't say that because I'm on there 12 hours a day, if not more, just because of my job. And also, oh God, I'm so addicted to TikTok scrolling. I never used to look at it. I was on here for years, like just posting, but I never looked at it. And then about, I don't know, 4 months ago, maybe I started, oh, I wonder what this TikTok's all about. And I started looking at it. It's addictive. So yeah, I can't really talk about it. But I do, there are ways that you can limit screen time. So there's 3 different ways of doing it. One is you have a allotted time of day every single day for the kids, maybe 7 to 7:30 kind of thing. The next one is you say you have an allotted amount of time per day. So you got 30 minutes a day, use it whenever you're, can. And then the last one that I prefer, especially when you got kids 5 and over, is you say, look, if you're 5 years old, you got 5 hours a week or something, and they can decide when they use it, so long as it's an okay time. They can't get up at 1 a.m. and do it. You get the idea. And you keep track of those minutes. So you keep every 10-minute section, you cross it off. So they've got so many, and it's very visual. Keep it up on a board where everyone can see. It's just a good way. And also, if they don't, you'll know if you're a leader, if they use up all those minutes, like by Wednesday, and then they've got nothing for the rest of the week. You know why? Because if you're a leader, they know they have to learn to manage that, because you're not going to give them you're not going to give in. Once they've used those hours, you're going to go through hell of no media, no screens for the next 4 or 5 days. A leader would go through that. A non-leader wouldn't. A non-leader would say, fine, just use it and go and do it anyway. So yeah, they get good at managing their own time with media if they've got a leader as a parent. Sorry, I am reading questions. I just don't always understand them. How to deal with kids using the other parent to get their way. Well, that's up to you parents to figure that out. Don't undermine the other parent. Then I remember my dad was the pleaser. He would die. He spoiled me. But then he died when I was young. So spoiling was over. Anyway, thank God. Thank God I wasn't spoiled anymore, but it was horrific going through that. Anyway, and I remember once he used to give in to me all the time. So if I wanted something, I'd go to my dad, and I'd have to be careful because I didn't want my mom to hear. And so I remember one day, they must have talked about it behind my back. I was like 4 or 5. And I said, Daddy, I always imitate myself like this. Daddy, can I please have that? So my dad would say, sure, sweetie pie. He called me sweetie pie. Sure, sweetie pie. You can have anything you want. And then he said, one day it changed. And he goes, oh, let's go ask your mom first. And I said, oh, never mind. So yeah, make sure you're on the same page. If you're going to be undermined by another parent, none of this stuff's going to work. They're just going to go to the other parent, get spoiled rotten, and get whatever they want. You have to be on the same page. You don't have to do the same things, but you can't undermine the other parent. So like I was the leader. My kid's father was more the pleaser. We used to call him the treat master, but he never undermined me. If they asked for something from him, he'd say, well, what would your mom say? Or have you checked with mom? So he made sure that, he wasn't undermining me. How to handle the mind stage before toddlers understand what sharing is, 2-year-old. Well, you don't really teach them sharing. You teach them not to grab. So if they say mine, just say, no, it isn't, and take it away. Don't let that word mine manipulate and control you. If they just took something off another kid and said mine, you say nope and grab it and give it back to the other kid. They will eventually learn. They're not learning how to share. They're just learning how not to grab. And don't expect them to understand sharing. They don't have empathy yet. They just haven't developed that yet. They don't really, 2-year-olds don't really play together. They play side by side. They're just discovering themselves. They can't understand other people yet. They don't understand that other people have feelings and all that. They don't even understand their own feelings yet. So I don't know if someone's giving me that heart or not, but if you are, thank you for that. I never know what anything means on here. I used to do lives every single day for a couple of years, about a year and a half. And someone, I don't know what happened, but someone sent it, and it was an insult, evidently, an insult. And I went, oh, thank you. I got laughed at. I have no problem with that. I don't care. It's pretty funny, though, because I just never know what's going on. By the way, someone asked me once how much money we make on TikTok, because I don't know how many followers I've got on here. But in Canada, we don't make any money on TikTok at all. TikTok does not pay Canadians. We just got banned. We just don't get paid. So yeah, if you're Canadian and you're wondering how much I get and you want to get paid on TikTok, yeah, they don't pay Canadians. I love your podcast. Thanks so much for that. It's my daughter and I do that together. We're having a blast doing it. We're very different personalities, as I'm sure you've noticed if you do the podcast, if you listen to the podcast. I'm very I have no filter. Whereas my daughter is, she never says anything without thinking first, except of course with me and her husband and that. But yeah, she's very not reserved. Well, she can appear reserved with other people, whereas I have none of that in me. I'm like, I don't have a filter. She does. Often she just cringes. She's used to it now, but she often cringes when I'm talking. And I don't blame her. I just discovered you're Canadian. That's probably why I like you. Oh, that's so sweet. Oh, we're no better than anyone else. We're just talking about that today. We're kind of upset at how our friendship with the Americans has been sort of tested lately. And but I still love Americans, and but yeah, Americans and Canadians, I always thought we were very similar, and so yeah, I always thought we were like siblings, right? We'll get back there again. It's just temporary glitch. I don't know what's going on. Filter's a waste of time. The thing is, some people should be filtered. If you're a psychopath, you probably shouldn't say what you're thinking. I think I'm a decent person. I'm not going to say anything horrible. But yeah, maybe some people should be filtered. But yeah, I'm never going to say anything horrible, I think. I don't know. Usually if I'm going to say something stupid, it just makes me look like a fool. And I have no problem with that. I have no pride or dignity. Could care less. Too old for all that. Okay. Can you correct throwing at one? No, you can't. You can't correct much at one. You can just keep at it. They learn through repetition. They're going to go through stages. The thing is, don't make it fun or exciting. You just say no and you put that item away and don't give it any more attention. Then redirect their attention to something else. So rather than just stopping them from doing something, you want to redirect their attention. But they're going to go through stages and you can't really correct it. It'll just sort of peter out. So long as you're not like laughing at it or making a big deal out of it or not addressing it at all, it might continue. But yeah, you're not teaching them much at that age. I know my granddaughter, I daycare her one day a week, and she's just 16 months old. She's not precocious at all. I can't believe they've hardly got any childproofing or anything around there. She just doesn't get into anything. So that is really unusual. My kids certainly would have been into more than she is. Both of them would have. But yeah, she's not the least bit precocious. They're all so different. I thought she would have been. She seemed like maybe a feistier baby, but as a toddler, not at all. So far, she's only 16 months old. Yeah, I'll just look at her and I'll say, oh, let's touch something else. And she'll just touch something else. I'm like, wow. I would say that's not really the norm. Both my kids would have touched more than she does. But she's still young. She still might go there. What do you say when they say no? You don't say anything. You just ignore it. Like, don't react to that. Don't react to their trying to take control. So if you say, okay, let's get going, and they scream no, I pick them up and we get going. So, okay, we're going to go now. No, well, we're going anyway. I'm picking them up and we're going. This is if they're little, right? If you can pick them up. You don't do that with a 16-year-old. Okay, very good question. It'll be my last one, and it's a really good one. This is Amara Mura on YouTube. If they don't understand, you can't buy them something from the store every time. Should you just not do it? Absolutely. They do not understand exceptions. If you buy them something once at the checkout, they think they should have it every single time. They do not understand why you would get it one time and not another. That's why they talk about consistency and routine and habits, especially with young children. As they get older, exceptions are more, they're fine, but not when they're little. They do not understand exceptions. That's why you've got to be 100% consistent. My kids never fussed at the checkout. They didn't know that you can get stuff at a checkout because it never happened. They had no clue. They used to look at other kids at the checkout whining and grabbing stuff, and they were so confused because they didn't know that was an option. They had no idea. But every so often, as they got older, I would get them something, but they would never ask. I used to say, if you ever ask, that's not a surprise. That's me filling a demand. So in other words, if you ask, you get nothing. But every so often, I would buy them a treat, but they would never ask or touch anything. But yeah, so just stop doing it, because then when they're really little, they just don't understand exceptions. Okay, I got to run. Thanks so much for joining me. Check out my website, BratBusters.com. You can see my free behavior board, my courses, my coaching, and you can link into our podcast. It's called BratBusters Parenting Podcast. It's on all the platforms. And my daughter, who works with me, we do the podcast together. She organizes it all. She edits it all. She does all that stuff. So she does all my marketing, planning, and what else? Oh, social media. So if you see anything on social media, that's all her. And well, I'm the one talking, but she does all this stuff. She decides what goes out there. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. And hopefully I'll be able to do a live. See, I'm only doing like one a week right now, but I used to do them every single day. I miss doing them. We just don't have time anymore. But I'd like to get more into it again. I think the podcast is taking over a lot of our time too. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. Happy parenting. Bye now.